Hello, hello. Today I want to talk about accessibility at VidCon 2017. First, I'm afraid I must reiterate a point I made last year about the importance of visible signage. Last year, I and many others had tremendous difficulty finding the accessible entrance to register. And this year I was told it was just as difficult. It's rather hidden if you don't know what you're looking for, and staff was not helpful in pointing it out. In fact, they've directed wheelchair users to a staircase, unsure of where the accessible entrance was and pointing it out as the only entrance possible. I don't know why they would do that. So come on, VidCon. Make some signs, inform staff members and security. It's an easy fix. Compared to last year, there were properly labeled foods, but there were also places where they weren't, or could be easily confusing if the cards were switched around. And this is vital. If someone has an allergy, this kind of error could cause a reaction, or worse, a fatality. Aside from proper labeling, there should be more accommodating options for food for people with different dietary restrictions. That means vegan options, lactose-free, gluten-free. And while I know many people think that those kinds of requests are some fad or unnecessary, but for some people, those are actual allergies and they need to be taken seriously. This year, VidCon had up to, I believe, 15 ASL interpreters on call, and that is really amazing. I also heard that they released an email to guests so that they could request an interpreter. That kind of communication with disabled guests is so necessary, and I hope it won't stop there. I really hope that at a disability registration at the event, the staff is well informed and has conversations with the disabled guests about their concerns with accessibility, because that is the way that they're going to improve. I didn't see it for myself, but I was told that this year there was actually a disability/accessibility table at registration, and I'm really glad that's a thing that's happening. So VidCon puts on these movie screenings. It's an online video convention, so now that I think about it, they play a few things on the big screens throughout the day. A friend of mine who is deaf decided to attend the event, but there were no captions. And when they asked about if captions could be turned on, they were told by staff to find an interpreter to interpret the film. No, that's not how that works for so many reasons. Videos and films at the convention need captions so that all guests find whatever's on that big screen accessible. This was also a matter of disability etiquette, which brings me to my next point: disabled priority seating. Last year was my first year at VidCon, and I was pretty disappointed at the lack of accessible/disabled priority seating, which left wheelchair users either in the far back or floating in the aisle. Yikes. But it was rectified this year with marked disabled priority seating and open spaces at the ends of rows for wheelchair users. Now for the not so great part. My friends, one with spina bifida and the other who has EDS and is hard of hearing, they were sitting in the designated area when a security guard came up to them and told them.
And I was sitting in the disabled seating section, and a security guard came up to me and said, "This is disabled seating." I responded saying, "I know, I'm disabled," and he looked at me and went, "No, you're not."
No. Whoa. No. That is such an inappropriate thing to say. And what does that even mean? What does disability look like? Anyway, I do understand where the guard was coming from. The intention was to reserve a limited resource for the people that needed them, but in doing so, harassed the very people that he was trying to stand up for. So again, I must persist that the staff need a briefing on things like this. People with non-apparent disabilities are still disabled. My friends needed to be seated in those seats so they could get a clear view of the ASL interpreter and cart. People who are blind or visually impaired also benefit from sitting up close, and those with mobility disabilities also need those seats. In case people stand up and they still need to sit, they'd be able to without missing anything. Also, with the space that they have in the front rows, they can easily get in and out for breaks if that's something that they need to do. None of these disabilities are ones you'd be able to tell just by visual evidence. And I don't know what kind of difference you're expecting when you say you don't look disabled. A possible solution might be a card, badge, or even a ribbon that attaches to our VidCon badges that alerts security and staff of accessibility needs. Let me know what you think. There needs to be more awareness and education regarding visible and non-visible disabilities and what their access needs are. There needs to be proper training for staff and security so these kinds of things don't happen in the future. Another thing that I'm not sure, because I was backstage a lot, happened throughout the event is the availability of quiet spaces or quiet rooms. Personally, as a person who has some sensory processing issues and anxiety issues, I could not spend a lot of time in the front of house, right, in the main areas, because it was far too overwhelming, too much stimuli. In order to be there, I had to kind of find my own hiding spots backstage where I could have some quiet. Quiet spaces are so needed for people with sensory processing issues, for people with anxiety, and just plain old anyone who just might need a moment to exhale, to breathe. So I'm not sure if there were designated quiet spaces at the event, but if they weren't, I hope they'll be included next time. While I am positive there are accessibility issues that I may have missed in this video, I hope that anyone with concerns alerts VidCon via their survey or makes contact with them some other way, and then VidCon can make the appropriate changes for a more accessible and inclusive event, convention, where all guests feel equal and valid in the space, and not like their disability will cause them to be excluded throughout the event. And I will see you eventually.